WRVA.com. I'm Gary Hess, News Radio WRVA, the voice of Virginia.
Sun is up over central Virginia skies. Hanover moving and the city's alive. One more hour to own this town. WRVA never slowing down. Wake up the rich and win the day, or spend the whole day playing catch up anyway. Richmond's morning news keeps you running strong. 9 a.m. Let's roll all morning long.
All right, thanks for joining us, everybody. 9:04 this morning on News Radio WRVA. Quick reminder, programming note, this will be our last show of the week. We're taking July 3rd off, and that'll be a company holiday for us, but we're back on Monday of next week, and we have all kinds of stories that we'll be able to tell you about the Independence Day celebrations we'll all go experience. Now, we run back out to the Newsmaker hotline here on News Radio WRVA. Governor Jim Gilmore, we'll ask him to put on his ambassador's hat for us as we start taking a look at things going on internationally. And what a week we've had, sir. Let's start with Ukraine and Russia, where there's now viral video going out, and the gasoline prices in Russia through the roof. They're looking at $9, $10 a gallon. There's massive shortages, and we're actually seeing fist fights as people are just getting frustrated with what's going on with the Russian economy. Your thoughts?
Well, just so the war that Putin has started by invading another country, which is Ukraine, is now beginning to touch on the citizens of Russia. Now, let's be clear. I believe that the people of Russia are complicit in these war crimes. I think that they enable their government to do what they're doing against Ukraine. But even overnight last night, there was a barrage of Russian attacks on the citizens in Kyiv. I think the big distinction here is that the Ukrainians now have started to attack Russia itself, but it's always oil refineries or military installations.
Governor, you there? I think we lost the governor for just a second. Dave, you can get it back on. He was talking about now that the because of the emerging technology from the Ukrainians before, Russia never thought that Ukraine would be able to strike into the heart of Mother Russia. In fact, they had asked for things, and they were like, no. You could fight defensively during the Biden administration. We do not want you to go offensively into Russia. And for the Russians now, because of the Ukraine's drone technology, there is not a lot of places that are safe from Ukrainian drones attacking Russia. And that's been a big concern now in Moscow, and now they're starting to feel that throughout Russia. So again, we're going to do our best to get Governor Gilmore back on, having a little bit of phone trouble this morning, but that's something that's kind of changed quite a bit. So for Putin and the Russian people, and the thought of, well, we'll just roll up Ukraine, it won't take us that long. Go back to Joe Biden saying, hey, do you want to ride out of here? And Zelensky said, no, I want bullets. I'm going to stand here and fight. And the Klitschko brothers and all the rest. And now this thing is just drug on and on and on. And it seems like the people of Russia are finally getting fed up with this. And we've talked about this, that there's three parts. There's a three-legged stool when it comes to international conflict. There's the bombs and the missiles and the guns and the troops. There's the financial issue that you have when you go and you fight another country. And then the third thing is the morale. And you can break a country's morale and they go, we're done, we don't want to fight anymore. Or you could break them economically, or you could crush them militarily. And right now, the Ukrainian people still continue to rally around Zelensky. And you see the Russian people now starting to go like, what are we doing over here? Why are we doing this? What is going on? And now they can't get gasoline, and they're standing in line and they're seeing gasoline go through the roof. They're like, wait a minute, this was supposed to be over in a couple of days, this special military exercise, and now it's gone on and on and on. There's people that are coming back that are wounded. There's people that aren't coming back at all. And you look at what it's doing for us economically. I think the Russian military is on their heels right now, and we're going to do our very best to get Governor Gilmore back on here in just a second, because we want to talk to him about that and then get an update and his thoughts on what we see going on with Iran and the U.S. And they had the meeting the other day, The president says that we're getting closer and closer. The Iranians did come out today and say, yes, we will admit it publicly, because I think what we see is the Iranian government speaking to their own people, and it's a little different than what they might be saying to Witkoff and Jared Kushner when they get together. They're saying like, hey, listen, no, we're never going to be here. We're not going to do this. A lot of that is posturing for the people inside the country, and then every once in a while you hear them creak out a little bit. Yeah, okay, I guess we're going to let the inspectors in here at some point. So for the president, there's people that are starting to say this could be a play for him. Maybe it's a little bit more chess than checkers. Allow Iran to put oil onto the market, and you're going to hear it. We heard it in the Bloomberg report today. You'll probably hear it over the weekend. You'll probably hear it on some of the Sunday shows. There is a glut of oil that's about to hit the international market. And again, we've learned this because of this Strait of Hormuz thing, that the oil market is an international market that changes from minute to minute. And you're about to have a glut of oil that's going to hit this market, the Iranian oil, for the first time in probably 47 years, somewhere around there. I don't know the exact time, but it's been a while since they've been able to legally sell their oil $4 in the U.S. market. That's the big thing. Oil is 100% sold in dollars, and the Iranians did not have access to those dollars, and therefore they could not sell their oil in the international market. So they've been selling it through the black market, through the ghost fleets. Now their oil is actually going to hit the markets, and they have so much that's been built up because of the blockade. When this oil hits the market, you're going to see the oil prices the price of oil crash, because now you've got Venezuela that had been prevented from selling their oil in the international markets. That's going to hit the oil market at the same time that you now have all of this oil that's been stored up, held up, put in tanks, and they've been having a hard time trying to get that into the marketplace. Now they can, because Scott Bessent has allowed them temporarily to sell their oil in the open market. Now you're going to see this price of oil completely collapse. We'll see what happens with that. Do I have Governor Gilmore again? All right. Governor, we were talking about, before we lost you there, we were talking about the Ukrainians actually being able to strike into Russia. I remember early on, some of the weapon systems that the Ukrainians were asking for were offensive, and the Biden administration said no when they were talking about getting them fighter jets and different missiles, because the administration before it said, we don't want you actually firing into Russia and escalating this thing. Now, with these drones that they have, the technology they've come up with on their own, they can actually strike into Moscow and into the heart of Russia.
Yes, they're not any longer being constrained by the reluctant and scared Western countries, including the United States. They developed their own weapons, and they now can go into Russia. But the important point I was trying to make is that the Ukrainians are striking Russia's oil, military capacities, transportation capacities. They've already done that in the Black Sea. They won the Battle of the Black Sea with these kinds of drones. And that's what they're doing. The Russians, on the other hand, are doing something different. They're attacking people, regular civilians, and they're hoping to break the will of the Ukrainians by killing off women and children and just innocent people. That's the two different ways that this war is being fought. The Russian way of doing things is against international law, and it's a war crime, which brings us to a bigger issue, which we can talk about later, which is, are we just going to have a world based upon sheer power, or are we going to have an overlay of international law saying that power is constrained in certain ways? I'm a guy that believes in international law, not to the elimination of American sovereignty by any means, but just saying that there are some things that are right and wrong, and killing civilians deliberately in war is stuff that the Nazis did. So that can't be allowed. And in the end of the day, we just got to get this guy Putin out of there, get him in trial in Geneva, put him in prison or hang him. That's all we can do in order to try to bring the Russians back into the civilized world.
How much does it mean that we're actually seeing these images come out of Moscow or the other places in Russia that we're seeing Russians actually fighting over gasoline? That's really stuck out like a sore thumb to me, sir, that we're seeing this kind of dissatisfaction with the Russian economy and the Russian society.
Well, it's going to grow as time goes on, as long as the Ukrainians hold out. My view is the Ukrainians can't be beat. At this point, they're going to hold out because they understand the consequences of giving in to the Russians and becoming a province of Russia. There'll be mass murder at that point, even more than is going on now by the Russians, and they're not going to permit that. They're going to stick with it, and they're not going to quit. So, yes, the consequences are now going into the Russian citizenry, and that's a good thing because at some point the Russian people are going to rise up at some point and say, look, this is crazy. Why are we doing this? And, then Putin is really in trouble.
No, 100%. All right, sir, I thank you for coming on with this. We will catch up with you next week. Please enjoy everything at Monticello this weekend. I was there last year. I went the day after the 4th of July, or a couple days afterwards. The big tents were up at the mansion there for Monticello, and people told me how wonderful that naturalization ceremony is for those new U.S. citizens. So I'm glad you'll be there representing yourself and your family on this most important 250th birthday of America.
Very good. I look forward to the opportunity. It's a great American location, Monticello. It stands for a lot of things, and we need to remember on the 4th of July, especially the Declaration of Independence.
100%. Sir, thank you very much. Happy Independence Day. I'll catch up with you next week.
Happy 4th.
Thank you so much. Governor Jim Gilmore joining us here on News Radio WRVA. All right. Today's program is brought to you in part by our friends at Men's Wellness Center. So, guys, tell me, are you ready for the summer? Are you ready for everything? You're going to go away for the weekend? You're going to go down to the Keys, maybe? You're going to have a nice romantic... Oh, you don't want to go on a nice romantic weekend? Oh, why not? Okay, you don't want to talk about it? I get it. Dude, I get it. When you get 40, things happen. I get it. It's frustrating, but who are you going to talk to? You can't talk to your buddies about it. You're not going to call your brother. Hey, guess what? So you just sit there and you don't know what to do. And it gets inside your head. Your confidence is shot. And you're just thinking to myself, what in the world is going on? Okay. Let me help you out a little bit here. Let me tell you about Men's Wellness Centers. There's 3 locations. Glen Allen, right here in Richmond, Virginia Beach, Newport News. Give them a call. Mention my name, Rich Herrera, at 1-800-410-3577. 1-800-410-3577. Sit down, talk with them, have them draw some blood. They'll do lab work. You'll find out whether it's your testosterone. And if it is, they'll have a plan for you right there.